Picture a creature millions of years ago finding a piece of fruit on the forest floor. It is past ripe. It is soft and browning and giving off a sharp, sour smell. By every sign your senses would give you, it is going bad, and the creature eats it anyway. A strange warmth spreads through its body. The world tilts just slightly. Its balance loosens, its caution softens. And here is the part that makes no sense at all. Instead of learning to avoid that feeling, it comes back the next day and goes looking for more. That creature was not a fool. That creature was your ancestor. And the pull it felt toward that spoiling fruit is the same pull a person feels today standing in front of a bar, or a bottle, or a glass of wine at the end of a long day. Here is the question that should hold you all the way to the end. You probably think humans invented the taste for alcohol, that some clever ancestor brewed the first beer, and we have been chasing it ever since. That is completely backwards. The taste for alcohol is far older than beer, far older than farming, far older than humanity itself. It is written into your body in a single letter of your genetic code, placed there roughly 10 million years ago. And once you understand why it is there, the real mystery is not why people drink. It is why so many people cannot stop. Hold on to that. Start with the fruit, because everything begins there. Fruit is a plant's bribe. It wraps its seeds in sugar to convince an animal to eat them and carry them away. But sugar does not sit still in the world. The air is full of invisible yeast, and yeast has one job. It finds sugar and it eats it, and as it feeds, it produces a waste product. That waste product is alcohol. This is fermentation, and it is happening constantly, everywhere, on its own. Any ripe fruit left in the warmth begins, quietly, to turn. The riper it gets, the more it ferments and the more alcohol it holds. So, to an animal that lives on fruit, alcohol is not some exotic substance. It is the smell of dinner being ready. And that smell travels. This is the crucial part. Alcohol is light and volatile, so it drifts through a forest far better than the scent of the fruit itself. For an animal trying to find ripe, energy-rich food hidden in a wall of green, that faint alcoholic tang on the breeze is a beacon. Follow the smell of fermentation, and you find the sweetest, most calorie-dense fruit around. The biologist Robert Dudley built an entire idea around this, called the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. His argument is that our fruit-eating ancestors did not stumble onto alcohol by accident. They were drawn to it, generation after generation, because the animals that chased that scent found more food and survived better than the ones that ignored it. And you do not have to imagine this happening in some vanished past, because it is still happening now. In the rainforests of Southeast Asia, there is a tiny creature called the pen-tailed treeshrew that drinks fermented palm nectar every night, taking in amounts of alcohol that should leave it staggering, yet it goes about its life unaffected. Slow lorises, given the choice, reach for the more alcoholic nectar over the weaker one, and only recently researchers confirmed that wild chimpanzees, our close cousins, regularly eat fruit containing alcohol as a normal part of their diet. Across the animal world, the creatures built like your ancestors are still following that same faint scent through the trees. You are not the exception. You are the extreme. But a smell is only useful if your body can handle what it leads you to. And this is where the story stops being about behavior and becomes something written directly into you. To use alcohol as food instead of being poisoned by it, a body needs the right tool, an enzyme that can break ethanol down. And here is the strange thing. Most primates barely have it. For most of our fruit-eating relatives, the enzyme that handles alcohol is almost useless, which means fermented fruit would make them sick long before it fed them. So what changed for us? A team of scientists, led by Matthew Carrigan, went looking for the answer inside the genome itself. They reconstructed the history of that alcohol processing enzyme across dozens of primate species, walking it backwards through millions of years of evolution. And they found a single moment. Roughly 10 million years ago, in the ancestor we share with gorillas and chimpanzees, one tiny change occurred. A single letter swapped in the genetic code. And that one change made the enzyme about 40 times better at breaking down alcohol. Overnight, in evolutionary terms, our lineage went from being poisoned by fermented fruit to being able to eat it, digest it, and live on it. Sit with the timing of that, because it is not random. It lines up with the moment our ancestors were spending more time on the ground. Up in the trees, you eat fruit fresh off the branch. But down on the forest floor, you eat what has fallen, and fallen fruit is older, softer, and far more fermented. An ape coming down from the trees would have been walking into a world of boozy, rotting fruit on the ground, and the ones who could stomach it had a whole new food supply the others couldn't touch. That single genetic letter may be one of the reasons your ancestors thrived. So understand what this means. Before there were humans, before there was language, before anyone had ever lit a fire or planted a seed, your body was already built to seek out alcohol and turn it into fuel. The craving is not a modern vice. It is a 10-million-year-old survival instinct. Before we follow that instinct into the modern world, notice what this channel keeps doing. It takes the things you assume are new, or human, or your own, and shows you the ancient machinery underneath. If that is what you come here for, subscribe, and the next one will be waiting. Now back to the instinct and the trap it walked us into. For almost all of those 10 million years, the system worked perfectly. Alcohol came bundled inside fruit, in tiny amounts, 1 or 2% at most, wrapped in sugar and fiber and water. You physically could not get drunk on it. To take in a meaningful amount of alcohol, you had to eat an enormous amount of food, and your stomach filled up long before your head did. The instinct that pulled you toward fermentation just pulled you toward calories. It was a beacon, not a bottle. There is even a trace of that old beacon still wired into you, and you feel it every time a drink before dinner makes you hungrier rather than fuller. Scientists call it the Aperitif effect. To your ancestors, it made perfect sense. The taste of alcohol meant ripe fruit was near, so the body learned to answer it by sharpening the appetite, getting ready to eat. That is the whole logic of the system in one small reflex. Alcohol was never the reward. It was the signpost pointing at the reward. Then, only a few thousand years ago, humans did something no animal had ever done. We separated the alcohol from the fruit. Once people learned to ferment deliberately, they could concentrate the very thing that had only ever come in trace amounts. The molecular archaeologist Patrick McGovern has traced the earliest evidence of intentional fermented drinks back roughly 9,000 years to a site in China where residue on ancient pottery revealed a brewed beverage of rice, honey, and fruit. That was the beginning of a project that never stopped. Fruit ferments to a couple of % on its own. We pushed beer to 5, wine to 12, and then learned to distill, concentrating spirits to 40% and beyond. We took a faint forest signal and turned it into a flood. And now the trap is clear. You are walking around with a 10-million-year-old instinct that screams, "Seek this out." An instinct calibrated for a world where alcohol was rare, dilute, and impossible to overdose on. Then you placed that ancient instinct in a world where alcohol is concentrated, endless, and available on every corner for a few coins. The beacon still fires. Your body still reads that molecule as follow this. It means survival. But the thing it is guiding you toward is no longer a piece of ripe fruit. It is a substance strong enough to poison you, sold in quantities your ancestors could never have found in a lifetime of foraging. No wild animal following the scent of fermented fruit could ever have reached a bottle of spirits. The forest simply would not allow it. The dose did not exist. We are the first creatures in the entire history of this instinct who can fully answer its call, and the answer turns out to be far stronger than the question was ever meant to be. This is why the real mystery was never why people drink. Of course, people drink. You were built over 10 million years to want exactly this. The mystery is why some people cannot stop, and now you can see the shape of the answer. It is not a modern weakness of character. It is an ancient strength, a finely tuned survival drive, firing perfectly in a world it was never designed for. Robert Dudley calls modern alcohol abuse an evolutionary hangover, the aftermath of a craving that kept your ancestors alive for millions of years, and now, in a world of bottles and bars, quietly destroys their descendants. So look one more time at that creature on the forest floor, eating the spoiling fruit, feeling the world tilt, and coming back the next day for more. You have been taught to see drinking as a human invention, a habit, a choice. It is none of those things. It is the oldest hunger you own, older than your species, following a scent through the trees to a fruit that no longer exists in a world that learned how to give it far, far too much.
And if an instinct 10 million years old still running your cravings unsettles you, then consider this. Somewhere, an ancestor of yours looked at a living thing, armored in spikes and claws, a creature built entirely to say, "Do not eat me," and decided to put it in their mouth anyway. Click on this next video over here. Go find out who was hungry or brave or desperate enough to eat the first one.